Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Today, I have the opportunity of talking with the man himself, Yeukai Kajidori. For those that may not know yet, Yeukai, Elaine, and myself, we've recently collaborated with 5 other successful leaders to compile a book called 8 Qualities for Great Leadership. And we're recording a series of episodes so that we can chat to each of the authors to talk about their specific topic and really dig into it a bit more and get their thoughts around it. There's only so much you can get in a chapter, so it's really good to have a conversation direct as well. Now, each of the qualities are enduring, so they're the sort of things that we need to keep on top of, keep current in our leadership journey and in our own lives personally as well. So Yeukai, you wrote about the topic of leading well virtually, how to lead remote teams. And I think that's such a good fit, knowing you well, because we've been friends for many years. And I've seen your journey through business, through leadership, to some extent, probably closer than a lot of other people. And talking about how to manage well remotely is such a good fit for you, because I know you've been doing it for a long, long time. So before we dig into some of the nitty gritty, just wanted to say welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's such a privilege that I get to do this with you. I remember a few years ago, probably around 2012, when I was starting out on the journey of working with people primarily in the Philippines. You got to see me perhaps struggle making the most common mistakes that people do. It costed me, even my time, money, not to mention the level of stress back then. And you were part of that whole journey now, over a decade now of me doing this, and you've been part of the journey. So I'm glad that you get to ask me some questions, and perhaps anyone who is listening will be able to learn 1 or 2 things to avoid, so that you have a little bit easier and learn even the fastest way, the surest way of getting it right when it comes to working with remote teams.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be good to sort of dig into a few of the critical skills which we can easily overlook, I think, and just sort of assume it's the same remotely as it is if you're with people in the room. And there are some similarities in certain things, but there's other unique characteristics which, as you say, you've discovered in some ways the hard way, or the journey has been sort of a learning curve. Just as I was thinking about before we started recording, like, I know you started what is the now successful Yeukai Business Show back in 2015, the podcast, Chats to Business Leaders. And I know you were using sort of remote teams then, but you were using them way before then, weren't you?
That is correct. Yes, way, way before. In fact, I can tell you how I got started in working with remote teams. I was at the stage in my life where I wanted to grow businesses. So I went to an event that was run by a guy called Mike Anastasi, and he created a blueprint for everybody who wants to be successful in running a business. And in that blueprint he was sharing with everybody, he pointed out that you can do anything alone, but it won't be as effective. Well, actually, it may be as effective, but you won't go further. In fact, I remember him quoting an African proverb that says, if you want to go faster, go alone. If you want to go further, go with others. And I thought, okay, I'm going into business. I need others to work with me or to help me build my business or my goal or the vision I had at the time. And from that conference, I came out with, I have 2 options. One is to go and hire people right here in the United Kingdom that I will put on a payroll, and they can work either in the admin aspect of my business or work in the marketing or in the sales. I can do that, but the cost was quite high. In fact, I just didn't have enough money to be able to do that. That was option 1. Option 2 was to use remote teams. In fact, Mark Anastasi shared his way of doing it. He was working with the team from the Philippines, and he showed us how the lifestyle and the differences in economies enabled somebody in the United Kingdom to hire somebody in the Philippines and pay them a good wage, which is above, what teachers and, a lot of people were earning at the same time, but seemingly a small amount when you are in the United Kingdom. So that was the journey. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and see what happens. As a matter of fact, after the conference, Trevor, within 7 days, I had hired my very first virtual assistant who was working with me. I didn't know what I was doing. I just, I'm one of those people that if I see the value in it, rather than to wait for a long time to come up with a, elaborate plan, I just jump straight into it. It's not always the best approach, but 9 times out of 10, it gets me into action and I identify what works and then keep doing that. And what doesn't work, I just leave it out completely. So that's how I was introduced into the world of virtual employees or remote teams. And my very first virtual assistant did not last long. Surprise, surprise, because I just didn't know what I was doing. The second one did not last long. The third one, probably I went through maybe 5 or 6 people that were not maybe great. It wasn't a great fit. Looking back now, it was all down to me. It wasn't down to them. There were certain areas that I needed to master, which I hope we're going to talk about in this recording here. That once I mastered those, I then went on to recruit Miss Leeway, who happened to work with me since 2013, right up to this moment. It's nearly a decade now of having virtual assistant working with me consistently. And that, to me, if you can hire somebody from abroad and they work with you over 5 years, now a decade, it means I'm doing something that ensures they're happy, I'm happy, I'm supporting their well-being, and in fact, their families, and I'm also building my business. It's a win-win-win situation, which is what I'm all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know there's a lot of flexibility that you've sort of built into your businesses and how you operate for them as well as yourself. I remember we've been on holiday and you've sort of been on the beach and you've just sort of caught up with a few of the team members to keep momentum going, and then you carry on holiday, and you don't have to be there in the office, but they're actually able to progress the things that they're working on as well. So maybe just what would you say would be for people listening that have maybe been thrust into this through more recently as everything changed through the global pandemic? A lot more things happen remotely, partly for a need at the time, and now it's become a lot more part of sort of normal culture within a lot of organizations. What would you say would be the key critical skill that is either not developed well enough, or just people don't realize that that's the actual thing, the crux that's going to make the difference between leading well successfully and not?
Yeah. So, Trevor, to simplify this, there is what I call the hardcore skills and the soft skills. The hardcore is like you do this, use this tool, communicate this way. Those ones anybody can learn. In fact, we are consistently, in communion with other people. Let me backtrack a little bit. If you look at your life, I know Bill and everybody listening here, you use remote teams every day of your life. In fact, we used to say you outsource a lot of functionalities in your life today. You wake up and you perhaps you take a taxi to go to work. When you get there, somebody prepares a cup of tea for you. It's a whole lot of things that gets done for you on a daily basis that you don't practically do it for yourself. That is a remote team right there. Maybe you just don't see it that way. That is outsourcing certain functionalities of your life to other people who knows how to do that very well into your life. What I'm bringing to you right now It's not something that is completely new, like the skills you need to have. You already have those skills. They're already inbuilt in you. By becoming aware of how you are using your skills to get somebody to do certain things for you. Maybe even your kids say, hey, get me a cup of coffee. You have outsourced that skill, and sometimes they say, oh, I don't want to do that. Or they sometimes, you can tell from the action that, oh yeah, this did not go so well. So what I want you to do at this point is begin to notice every single day in your life, when you give an instruction and it is received well and you get the desired outcome, begin to think, okay, well, how did I do that? How did I get this person to help me? If it is, somebody getting you food, you're at a restaurant and you've had an amazing experience, the waiter has given you a wonderful experience. Now think of it this way. How did I communicate to this waiter? What did I say that made this person want to go over and above to deliver an exceptional service? And the more you do that, the more you're going to become even incredible when you begin to use the same skill sets in the business setting, because it is the same thing. It's just a slight mind shift. And the amazing thing is, if you can do it well in your personal life, you are able to do it well when it comes to the remote team, because it's just the same. Believe me, it's the same thing. How you elicit enthusiasm from the people around you to help you is exactly the same way you're going to use to work with some people who are far away. Now, coming back to your question, Trevor, I know I've gone all over the place there, but
no, it's good.
The skill set that one needs to develop faster right before you start engaging with a remote team, wherever they are, is soft skill. It's about you. In fact, in the book that we've wrote, we've got people who have written a lot on emotional intelligence, leading yourself. Those are soft skills that I want to expound on, because once you master those skills, your ability to communicate, by the way, number one critical skill is communicating well. Communicating is not just saying things out, is you've communicated well when the other person have a full understanding of what you're trying to say or convey to them. They're on the same page with you, to the point that they can even finish your sentence of what you're trying to say. When you know somebody's able to do that, it means you got it. It's all working the way it's supposed to be. So in order for you to communicate, which is a soft skill, and also is a hard skill, you need to be very, very clear in yourself. What is it that you want done? Have clear expectation. Okay, this is my expectation. This is what I want done. Very, very clear. And also you have to have some kind of a loop that will, or a way of providing a regular feedback. So without clear communicating, or communicating to yourself first, what is it that I want to do? What is my expectation about this? Maybe it's a project. How do I get feedback? You nail those three things when it comes to communication, your chances of success will go from 50% to at least 90% or even more, because there are other things in there. So I'm not going to say 100%, but because there's the other side from the other person, but you increases your chances. So that's skill, a critical skill number one that a business owner like you and I need to develop. Now, how do you do that? That is a good question to ask. Okay, how do I make sure my communication is clear? Write it down, get it out of your head, put it on a paper. And sometimes if it is in your head, it may make a lot of sense to you, but when it's written down and it's removed from you, you begin to see the flaws, and then you can even make it better. So write it down. In this day and age, you can dictate what you're thinking about onto a computer, and it writes it out for you, and then you read it out loud, and then it becomes very, very clear. If you're fortunate like me, give it to somebody who you trust and say, hey, tell me your first thoughts about this. Does it make sense? If it doesn't, what is it that is not very clear on there? Because we are all the same. It may be somebody who has no understanding of what you're trying to say. They will pick certain things that are not clear, those ambiguities type. So, use what I call your mastermind circle and develop that. It's amazing. In no time, you'll be able to communicate with your team in the most artful and masterful way possible.
Absolutely. I like that. It's a really practical sort of exercise. Literally just put it out on paper, then look at it. You're right. Like a lot of the time it makes sense in our head. And then when we look at it on paper, it's like, okay, yeah, if somebody was to read that, why would I expect them to understand what that means if I'm not really that clear? Yeah, that's such a good thing. And that works within business, that works in actually every part of life, doesn't it? If you've got communication issues with somebody, for some reason you're not connecting well, there's a miscommunication, just stop and think, actually, what did that sound like? What was it that they were hearing rather than what I think I was saying? Such a key thing. I think one of the, as you sort of touched on, the challenges in some ways, because work is a lot more remotely, we feel more disconnected just from a geographical distance, whatever it is. But the communication issue is the same whether you're stood next to them, talking to them face to face, or whether they're, halfway around the world, isn't it? It's the key skills that you're touching on, that we get those sharp, we get those better, we understand ourselves better, therefore there's a higher chance that others will understand as well. So yeah, I really like that. Really practical stuff. This is what we like. See, we can dig into the detail.
Yeah.
You go into good detail in the book actually as well. I like the way that you cover it in there. What would you say would be, maybe just while we're on communication, can you think of an example where you learn this the hard way? Just if there's some sort of practical example where you think, actually, yeah, this is where it really came home to, I need to change my communication strategy.
So Trevor, you know this, that I'm a big picture thinker. I can look at a project and I can see how it is going to work out from A to B. For example, this project, the book project, right from the moment we started talking about it, I could tell, we will do a series of leadership books, and then we will do a series of training, and I can see it all working together. Now, not everybody thinks like that. You, case in point, my brother,
Absolutely.
you're very detail oriented. And when I get into detail oriented like you, I get lost in there. That's why we get to work together like that. Now, knowing that background about me, it helps me when I'm going to communicate with my team, that I have to learn that I had to learn this, that I am not supposed to explain the entire big picture, because for them, for my team, it doesn't matter, web developer, a social media manager, or whatever, to explain the big picture. I just need to explain what needs to be done right now and be as clear as I possibly can, and reveal the next step and next step and next step and next step. So I had to learn to put my big picture plan on a paper and then break it down. The reason I got to learn this is I used to explain the goal to my team, exactly what we were going. I'll give an example, because I've worked with the Philippines team quite a bit. Now, it's a great culture. Absolutely love the Filipinos, amazing people. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without my Filipino team. And that's honest, honest to God, really. But one thing that I've discovered over a decade of networking and working with them is, if you overload them with like, this is what we're going to do, what we're going to do, what we're going to do, it becomes so overwhelming. Maybe it's not for just the Philippines team, but anyone else, really. So I ended up losing some really good people, because they wouldn't be able to give me feedback that I'm lost now. They just think this is far too much. I won't be able to handle it. And then I had to go back and say, oh, maybe I should have just explained this very first part. Once they've mastered this, and then we move on to the next one and to the next one. So which meant at the time, I had to change how I communicate, what I am communicating, at what time that I was communicating that. So that clarity, that of knowing, how I'm naturally built, and then be able to bring it down to specifics and bring it down to time scale, and being able to break it down for somebody else has enabled me even to still do this. Now, I still get carried away sometimes, and then I have to say, come on now, brother, let's it's not everybody's built that way, and have to readjust again.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's a key thing for everybody listening, wherever they are and however they're sort of wired and how they function best. It's twofold, isn't it? It's realizing and appreciating that you are the way you are, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also the learning of other people think differently, and they approach tasks differently, and they need a different level of information. So it really is that balance of getting to know them, helping them understand where you are and why you sort of communicate the way you do as well, and then find that middle ground that sort of works well for both sides. Because it's like, I like the way you put it, really. It's almost like, boss, just give me the next 2 steps. That's all I need. Just give me the next 2 steps. But then there's also that, but how does that fit into the bigger picture? Like, where are we going as an organization, as a team? And to know and be reassured that you, as the leader, actually have that plan and that foresight in place is very reassuring. It's like, oh, he's not just making it up as he goes. He knows where we're going, and he's gradually taking us on that journey. I think that's a really good point to bring out, wherever people are with their teams. It's such a key thing to develop. So
yeah, can I just say at this point that it is the responsibility of a leader to make sure that you communicate effectively. That's why earlier on I mentioned that you need to leave a feedback loop so you can test, has what I've said gone through, or you're just, giving information. I need this, I need this, you need to provide that. And for what I do, I use a tool called People Box, where there's one-to-ones, and also like surveys that goes out for people to complete, and we catch up on a regular basis. The team now use it very often, but that's when I started using that when I wanted to know exactly how I am being received, how am I being perceived, what is working, what is effective. And you do that, and be clear on your communication. You've got a clear set of expectation. You've got the feedback loop, and you take ownership. One of the things I find some leaders do is it's their fault they're not getting me. No, you take ownership as the leader of your organization, or even in your own, to make sure that whoever you're communicating your goals, your aspiration, or your project actually gets what you want to say. That means you adopt a servant leadership where you really have, even like I was trying to say earlier on, I'm a bigger picture person. I have to come down and say, no, this is what we want to do. Break it step by step. It's hard work, for me, I can tell you that, but the benefits, the payoff, when you have broken down and the people get it, that this is what we're doing, this is where we are going, these are the steps we are going to be taking. You do it 2-3 times, you won't do it again. They will find a way of passing on that information to the rest of your team. You have duplicated yourself, which is what it's all about. Having a remote team is to multiply yourself and get to do more things at a shorter space of time through the efforts of so many highly skilled individuals. And it's a win-win situation. You create employment, a source of income for them, and you reach your goals. What else would you like?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's really good. And there's a thread sort of through the different chapters of the book that touches on how to develop sort of a healthy team culture, also to be very intentional about sort of how you communicate, how you engage with people as well. It's such a key thing that it's prevalent in all the chapters in a different, slightly different way, but it emphasizes the key points that are needed. And I think it's one of the things you touched on is like, I'm thinking for people listening, thinking, right, I haven't got a feedback loop. Yeukai says I need some feedback loop. I'm going to develop one of those. But you've already set the basis for the understanding of the feedback loop. Why people are, it's not, oh, he wants my opinion, he wants my feedback. Why does he want it? I'm not sure. They understand why you're asking them, because you're trying to become a better communicator to them and find that middle ground that we touched on, aren't you? So you've not just come in and launched this as a new activity we're doing.
That's right.
You've taken the time to build the relationship and that trust element as to why you're doing it, so that they can see the benefit of them giving their feedback, so that it's a win-win all round. So such a key point to bring out. Thanks for sharing that one. I think for people listening, if you just grab that bit now, if that's what you need right now, run with that. Listen to this again and pick up the other points as well, but make sure you get 1 or 2 key points that you can implement straight away.